Welcome to this tutorial showing you how to create a piece of work in response to the artist Kerby Rosanes. And you'll see in Photopea I've already opened up this photo of a turtle that I'm going to use. And I'm going to get rid of the background using the magic wand. I don't expect to get rid of all of it because it's quite a complicated background. But if I press delete on what I've selected, it's got rid of quite a lot. So now I'm going to use the polygonal lasso tool, once I've zoomed in, to go around the turtle. And as you can see, there are some bits that I'm going to need to go round properly on the outline of the turtle, but the majority has been removed by the magic wand, which is very helpful rather than having to polygonal lasso the whole of the outline of the turtle. I only have to do some parts and obviously take a bit more time than I am. I'm just doing it quickly so that you're not watching a tutorial that's an hour long. Okay, this bit's a little more complicated than the rest. Just quickly go around those bits, making sure that I'm getting just the turtle. And round the last flipper and up. And there we go. Okay, and now I'm going to select inverse, so I'm masking off the background instead of the turtle, and I press delete, and that's got rid of all my background. Okay, now I'm going to use the rectangle select tool to select the turtle. And I'm going to go edit, transform, flip horizontally. Okay, and then I'm going to use the arrow tool just to grab the corner handle and turn him a bit diagonal, so he's a bit more dynamic looking. And just shimmy him to a more central position. Okay. Right, now we need to put a background in, so new layer and drag it down to the bottom, and I'm going to fill it with plain white and use the paint bucket tool to fill the whole thing in. Okay, right, now I need to start doing the fun stuff, adding the shell, if you will, over my turtle. So I'm grabbing another layer, dragging it to the top, and I'm zooming in so I can see what I'm doing, and I'm going to use the pen tool, in this instance with no fill and a black stroke, and I'm just going to go round the main body of the turtle, and then as if it's breaking free of the shell, I'm going to do a kind of zigzag up and meet the original point. Okay, right, now I'm going to fill that with some white. There it is. Okay, and I'm going to leave the stroke black. Right, now I've got that, I'm going to do the flippers and the tail. Okay, so again, pen tool, and you'll see it filling in because I've got the white fill already on. And back to the original, and I'm going to slip that underneath the shell. There we go. And now the tail. So pen tool again, quickly around the tail, and again sliding it underneath. And then lastly, the other flipper. And there we go. Okay, that's already underneath the shell, so all good. Right, now to start putting the detail into the shell bit. And I'm just using the pen tool just to make a line of points, and you'll see how those work in a minute. And I'm going to do the same again down here. Okay, how you fill this bit is really up to you depending on your animal. I would highly suggest you have a piece of Kerby Rosanes work to look at while you're doing it. Okay, I'm just going to drag these up, Okay, and I'm rasterizing both of those lines, and I'm rasterizing the shell. Okay, because I don't want them to be live while I'm trying to do other lines on top. Okay, and that's something you're going to have to keep doing. So you see, I'm going to rasterize this new line, and then I'm going to draw another line and rasterize that, and another line and rasterize that. I would also suggest that at points you merge the layers down as well, as long as you're happy with them and you're satisfied that merging them is going to be a permanent thing. Okay, now I'm grabbing the pen tool again to do another line inside for another layer of segments. And you'll see it's filled with the white, so it's gone over the edge. So I'm just going to get rid of that fill. There we go. Okay. Rasterize it, as with all the other lines. And now I'm going to keep adding more lines. Okay. And I'm going to keep doing this until my shell and my flippers are completely filled. But I'm not going to make you watch me. I will cut away and come back. Right, we are back, and I have finished drawing all of the segments into my shell. And next thing I'm going to do is just brighten up the turtle. So I'm going to go to Image Adjustments, Brightness and Contrast, and I'm whipping up the contrast and the brightness a bit so it's a little bit of a nicer image. And then Image Adjustments, Hue Saturation, and I'm pumping up the saturation again so it looks more pretty. Okay, so that looks a little bit nicer against the white case now. Okay, next up we need to add some lines into the various parts of our case. So I'm going to zoom into a bit I'm not using, and I'm going to get the pen tool, and I'm going to make sure I've got no fill and a black stroke, and I'm going to make a line. Okay, and then I'm going to duplicate that layer, and I'm going to grab the arrow tool, and I'm just going to shimmy that over so I've got two lines. And then I'm going to merge that layer down so the two lines are on the same layer, and I'm going to duplicate that layer and then drag two lines across, and then merge that layer and duplicate it, merge that layer and duplicate it. There we go. Okay, so that's enough lines now, so I'm going to rasterize that so it's one picture, and then I'm going to duplicate it so that I've got lines ready to use another time. And then I'm going to take that set of lines that I just made, I'm going to drag it over somewhere on the shell. Let's bring it up. There we go. Somewhere on the shell where I want lines in a segment. And then I'm going to go to the shell layer, and I'm going to use the magic wand to select the bit that I want to have lines in it. I'm then going to go back to the lines, and I'm going to go select inverse, so it selects everything else, and then press delete. And you can see that I have lines just in that area now. Okay, and I'm duplicate another set of lines. This time I'm going to rotate them so they're going in a different direction. Just make sure they're on top of my shell. And you can do more than one area. So in this case, I'm going to do a couple. So I'm going to go back to the shell layer, and I'm going to magic wand two areas, remembering to press shift to be able to select multiple areas, then select an inverse and go back to my lines layer and press delete. Okay, and that will get me two areas filled in. And one thing I would suggest you do as you're beginning to fill these areas is just lock the layers that have the pattern in so they're sorted, and then drag the lines up so they're always on the top. Okay, I'm going to duplicate that again, take that, put it somewhere else, down here I think. Okay, shimmy it round, and then back to the shell layer, magic wand, and then back to the lines, select an inverse and press delete. and that's another section filled. Okay, right, just remember to take that layer down. Yep, just checking it's that one, there it is, and lock that too, and then duplicate the lines again, and I'll drag them down, and I'm going to fill 2 sections with this one, so make sure I go across 2 sections, and then go back to the shell layer, magic wand those bits, back to the lines layer, select and inverse, press delete, and there's more lines. Okay, and obviously you can change up your lines if you want, just lock that layer. Right, back to this layer, duplicate the layer, and you can change them up a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to resize these a bit bigger, a bit further apart. Okay, and I'll move those into place down in the middle, I think. Rotate them a bit. Okay, and then same process as before, go back to the shell layer and magic wand the areas, where is it, there it is, magic wand the areas that you want to be these lines. That'll do. Back to the lines, select, inverse, press delete, and there they are. Okay, right, I'm going to keep filling the rest of this shell with more lines, and I'll cut back when I'm done. Okay, here we are. I've finished doing all of the lines in the shell and the flippers and the tail. And you can see I've got a layer for my shell, a layer for my flippers and tail. And what I'm going to do is duplicate both of those layers. So I have 2 shell layers and 2 flipper layers. Okay, and the middle 2, I'm going to merge them together. I'm going to select both of those. So I now have the shell on its own, and the shell and flippers on their own layer, and just the flippers on their own layer. Okay, now on that top layer, I'm going to double click and I'm going to outer glow, and I want to make sure I've got normal selected with full opacity and lots of noise, because I want there to be dots. Okay, so 90%, and a bit of distance and a bit of size. Okay, but you'll have to work that out for yourself. And what I'm going to do now is right click on that layer and go to clipping mask, and it's going to kind of make it so that the effect is only on the areas on the layer below. Okay, and then I rasterize that so it's permanent, and I'm going to merge those layers together so I now have that shadow in there permanently along with everything else. Okay, right, next up we need to add the little kind of bits breaking off. So again, I'm going to move to a bit that I'm not using, and I'm going to use the pen tool to make myself a triangle, and I want to make that triangle look a little bit 3D. So I'm going to rasterize that so it's not a live shape anymore. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to use the pen tool again from inside to the corner and down. There we go, and then down to the other corner, up and back again. Okay, and then I'm going to rasterize that shape, and I'm going to drag it down below the triangle, and there we go. Okay, so if I merge those 2 layers together, I now have my 3D triangle shape. Okay, it's a little chunky at the moment, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stretch it, make it a bit flatter. Okay, and then I'm going to duplicate that layer, right click, duplicate layer, and I can start putting extra bits in wherever I feel like it. Okay, making them smaller, spinning them round, overlapping bits. Okay, and I just keep duplicating the layer and plopping in those bits wherever I want them to be. Okay, looking good. And I'm just going to grab that last one, plop it down there. Okay, right. They aren't the only shape I want though, so I'm going to make another shape. This time it's going to be kind of four-sided. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And I'll zoom in, same as I did before, so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to rasterize that shape. There we go. Grab the pen tool again. And same as I did before, from inside to the corner, down, over, up, and back. Rasterize, drag it down. Looking good. Okay, and then last shape, pen tool again. Let's go this way. Corner, down, other corner, and overlapping. There we go. Rasterize, and down, and then merge those three layers together. Right click, merge layers. Okay, and same as I did before, it's a little chunky, so I'm just going to go like that and make it a bit less chunky. Okay. Right, and exactly the same as I did with the triangles, just duplicating the layer and resizing and rotating to put them wherever I would like, to make it look like these things are flying off as the turtle breaks through the shell. Okay. And that's it. That is the shell done and dusted. So what I'm doing now is I'm going down to the bottom layer and I'm grabbing the circle shape and pressing shift. I'm drawing a circle. And it's up to you where you draw this circle. Again, look at Kerby Rosanes' work to help you. But that's that. Okay, and then I'm going to grab the custom shape and I'm going to use this triangle to make the top of my arrow. But I want my arrow to be black, so I'm going to go to the black color and I'm going to rasterize that so it's no longer a live shape. And I'm going to draw a line from my arrow. There we go. Okay. I'm going to rasterize that and I'm going to merge those two layers together. So my arrow is all on one layer. Okay. I'm going to move that, rotate it, I should say. Round. And I'm putting mine coming out from between the head and the flipper. Okay, something like that. And then I'm going to duplicate that layer and I'm going to have another one pointing downwards. From there. Okay. Right. And I think the heads of my arrows are a bit big, so I'm just going to shrink down the arrow shapes so that the arrow heads aren't quite so big. Just going to rotate that a bit. Okay. Right. Now I'm going to go back to my circle layer and duplicate it. And on this one, I'm going to go back to the shape tool. I'm going to turn the line to a dashed line. Okay, so one of my circles has a dashed line and one of them has a solid line. Okay, and one other thing I'm going to do is take away the white fill on both of those as well, because we don't need the white fill. Okay, that's good. Right, next up, I'm going to rasterize both of those circles. Okay, and you can see I've made the solid one invisible at the moment. And what I'm going to use is the eraser tool to just rub out the dotted line, the dotted circle, if you will, there and there. And then I'm going to go back to the solid circle and I'm going to erase it where I want the dotted circle to be, so around here. So obviously I'm making the other circle invisible while I do this so I can see what I'm doing. And then when I bring both back to visibility, you can see I've got the dotted line on one part and the solid line around the rest. Okay, and one other thing I'm going to do, just because I want to, is just delete that little bit down there. Okay, and that is this piece done and dusted. I hope you find this tutorial helpful.